For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal and welcome to The Gist, our signature show on foreign affairs, security and a lot else. Hi, I'm Surya Gangadharan, and this evening our focus is on the attack on the Assam Rifles convoy 2 days ago, which resulted in the death of its CEO, his family, and 4 other personnel. The details of the attack are well known. I have with me General Shokin Chauhan, former Director General of the Assam Rifles, to give us to break down this incident for us and give us some insight. General Chauhan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Surya. Nice seeing you and being with you on the show.
Sir, this is the first time in some years, I believe, that this attack of this kind has happened. What does that tell us about? Does it herald something more serious?
The issue about the Manipur insurgency is that this is an insurgency which has been festering for a very long time. You're aware that Manipur was a kingdom which was under first Myanmar or Burma at that time, the Burmese Empire, and later under the British. And finally, on independence, the king of Manipur, the king of Manipur, actually ceded his kingdom to India. But this has been a festering problem, Surya. By the 1960s, early 1960s, actually, the question started being raised about the insurgency, about the forced merger of Manipur with the Republic of India, and subsequently by the late 70s, an armed insurgency began. The PLA itself, which is the main protagonist in this ambush, was raised in 1978. And though from time to time we have neutralized the PLA and brought it down to an absolute zero, it continues to fester and continues to raise its head every once in a while. So, what does this issue tell us about Churachandpur, and why Churachandpur, and why an ambush there, and why Colonel Biplab Tripathi? These must be the questions in your head. Firstly, Churachandpur district itself. Let's analyze its geographical location. Churachandpur is actually a border district between Manipur, of the state of Manipur, and the Myanmar border. The road on which Colonel Tripathi was ambushed leads to BP 50, that is on the Indo-Myanmar border. Of recent times, I'm talking about the last 5 to 7 years, when I was the Director General of the Assam Rifles, and we had found that there was a lot of narcotics smuggling and a lot of illegal smuggling that was taking place on the road from More to Imphal. And there was a lot of problems when we established a checkpost on this road. The Assam Rifles established a checkpost. And then later on, we got some very good equipment, including under vehicle scanners, which helped detect a lot of narcotics. And this resulted in all these groups, especially the valley-based groups, what we call the VBIGs, of which PLA, KYKL, Pre-Pak are all members of, losing a lot of revenue due to this drug and timber smuggling. The road from BP 50 actually became an alternative route to Imphal, which they could use. Knowing that this would happen, the army command, in fact, TRICO, sent in an additional 2 battalions of the army, along with the 3 battalions of the Assam Rifles, to hold this very important border district, and to ensure that smuggling and the movement of these valley-based groups and the other insurgent groups does not, is stopped. And that, I feel, is the problem why this ambush has happened, because they've lost a lot of revenue, the valley-based groups, and hitting the Assam Rifles actually to put caution on us.
Now, this People's Liberation Army of Manipur, and the Manipur Naga People's Front. These are the groups that have claimed responsibility. How strong are they? Are they, across sitting in Myanmar? Do they have bases in the valley, as you mentioned?
Surya, firstly, let's talk about the PLA. The PLA came up as a valley-based insurgent group, basically consists of the mighties of the Imphal Valley.
Mhm.
Uh, they came up and reared their head sometime in 1978, with when we first heard about the PLA. But very quickly, we had broken the PLA's head when Bisheshwar Singh was actually caught by an army unit, and the group almost finished.
Mhm.
But like everything else in the northeast, if it is not actually tamped down and not the solution not brought in, raises its head every once in a while, and that's what happened to the PLA. At present, the PLA would probably have a cadre strength of 150 to 300, with about say 100 to 150 weapons. But this is a transient population, Surya. As far as the Manipur Nagas People Liberation Army is concerned, once again, it's an adjunct to the PLA. They've been trying to get the Manipur Nagas into their setup because uh, simply because the valley is surrounded by hills, and
Mhm.
they don't want to cede the space of these hills to the NSC and IM, and therefore
Okay.
they're trying to get some of these hill-based Nagas into this insurgency. Uh, I don't think the strength of the MNPLA is anything more than 100 odd people, and that to disaffected people, and probably bolstered by the PLA. As a group, the MNPLA doesn't really exist, or it
Mhm.
doesn't really have any strength. So they're acting in unison with the PLA, but otherwise, I don't think they're capable of carrying out these kind of operations.
I'd like to come to the ambush. The fact that the CEO was traveling, okay, with a patrol, with his family. Is this done? Is it normal? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
Surya, it's like this, that the Assam Rifles is not the army. The Assam
Okay.
Rifles remains in these difficult areas throughout their tenure. There is no tenure-based system for the Assam Rifles. We merely
Okay.
move one unit to another difficult field. So it's one difficult field to another difficult field. So in order to make sure that the troops enjoyed some kind of normalcy, we in the Assam Rifles allowed the Assam Rifle soldiers to keep their families on certain company posts,
Mhm.
and we have built up good accommodation for their families in some of these company posts. So as a rule, Assam Rifle families do live in some less active company posts.
Mhm.
And since Churachandpur was a less active area for the last 3 years, the CO would have permitted the families to stay there, and we have family accommodation there. So, in order to help in the welfare of these families, the CEO's wife is definitely a very important part of command in the Assam Rifles, and she would definitely have accompanied the CEO so as to find out the problems that exist in that area and how she can help the soldiers' families there. It's a wonderful measure, a very good measure, and it must continue regardless of the dangers that arise every once in a while. So it's this is the norm in Assam Rifles, that the CEO's wife does come there. We don't permit many other officers' wives. That's on the permission of the CEO. But importantly, there are soldiers' families there, and
And is there any like a road opening patrol or something when the CEO moves? Is
see,
there anything of that
Surya,
kind
what
done?
happens is that the CO, this is his area of command,
Okay.
and because COs move almost 20 to 25 days of the month,
Yeah.
to put road opening parties every time the CO is moving would actually
Impossible.
stop any other operation from having happening.
True. Mm.
So if I was a CO, I would never allow a road opening party. It's my area, and I'm supposed to make sure that these kind of things don't happen in my area. So this is what I feel Colonel Tripathi would have thought. He was moving around. He was extremely active. The unit had done very well in Mizoram, and they had moved from Mizoram to Churachandpur just a couple of months back. I think June, July, they moved from Mizoram to. He was in touch with me, Colonel Biplab Tripathi, and they'd done very well, and they'd got the governor's citation in Mizoram for cutting down the narcotics and for having huge success in bringing down the level of smuggling of narcotics in Mizoram. And Colonel Tripathi was also doing the same thing here. He was dominating the space. He was continuing to move, and unfortunately, this particular thing happened. It's unfortunate. But if I was a CEO, Surya, I would never use a road opening party.
I understand that some of the army units there were thinned out and moved elsewhere. Could this
Surya,
have been a reason for?
yes, you're right. After the recent movement of China along Ladakh and later in the northeast, there was a need for these army units to be moved out and taken to the Indo-China border or Indo-Tibet border along the line of actual control. Especially since you're aware that China actually does not recognize the state of Arunachal Pradesh,
Yeah.
and has been over the last couple of months, last couple of years, actually exerting a lot of pressure. So the army units were moved. They were moved with the reason to, dominate the line of actual control, and they left this space to the three units of the Assam Rifles of the sector. Uh, that's what definitely has happened.
So, do you say there has been, in that sense, there has been a little perhaps deficit there which these guys have exploited?
That was bound to happen. The fact is that it's a large space. It's a huge district, and there were only three units that are involved. These units are also looking at the Indo-Myanmar border as well as the counterinsurgency operations inside. So it's a huge task, Surya, and for that, spaces are left, and unfortunately, some vulnerabilities are also created, which were
And
exploited by this ambush party of the PLA.
and there's some reports I've read that this group may have crossed over from Myanmar. Is that accurate?
I would definitely think so because the PLA has bases in that area. Though, like I told you in the beginning, that Churachandpur, the majority population is that of the Kukis. And when this first happened, I was wondering how the Kukis would have, carried out this ambush, because one, the Kukis are all in under suspension of operations with us,
Yeah.
and they don't have the capability to do that. And secondly, uh, no, in my long years of experience, no insurgency group ever carries out an ambush in its own area, in its own base areas. The reason being that the retaliation by the army and the Assam Rifles is swift, and they don't want their own population to be affected by this.
Smart.
Yes,
There's also
that's
this
what
speculation.
that's what, even if you remember, the NSCN-K did when they
Yeah.
hit six Dogras in
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah.
They also carried out an operation in a place where they had no base population.
And no hint of intelligence at all about this. I
I'm
mean, I
certain there would have been intelligence. Maybe that's the reason why the CEO went to the company
okay.
to plan out operations. But that's something we will not know. We will not be able to confirm. But I'm
Yeah.
sure the unit would have had intelligence about the movement of PLA, because we do pick up a lot of chatter, from on the radios and on the cell phones. So we would have had definitely some intelligence. The other, the fact that this ambush party was able to come in and sit where they were sitting and hit where they could hit is
Yeah.
indeed very very sad.
There's been a lot of speculation about a China hand. Do you think the Chinese have, tacitly or otherwise allowed this group to
Surya,
carry
see,
this out?
uh, I've been a student of the Northeast insurgency and of the Northeast for the last 40 years of my life. I've had almost 5-10 years in the Northeast. It's been a long time. In the early 60s, 65, 67, 72, 73, 75, the insurgent groups used to go and train in China, and they would be given weapons, and the ideology would be, and then these groups would come back to create a problem there. After which, after the Shillong Accord, in fact, it was the NSCN groups that had actually were training in China that came back and restarted the insurgency after the Shillong Accord. During this recent problem that we've had with China, I am certain that the Chinese may have and could have told the PLA, especially since it's a socialist organization and adheres to the Chinese view of socialism, to restart some kind of insurgency, which might result in the army pulling back some of the units that are on the line of actual control.
Okay.
And to thin out from the line of actual control. The idea is to put us, to keep us unhinged, Surya.
Yeah.
And this kind of gray zone warfare has been talked about everywhere. So this is a part of that gray zone warfare that create mayhem as much as you can. Force a redeployment, force a rethink. Don't let them be comfortable would definitely be the view of China. And there would be definitely some kind of tacit approval by China to the PLA.
And I suppose there's no shortage of weapons in that area.
Surya, there are no shortage of weapons in the northeast because the jungles are porous. There's a lot of smuggling, and they have been over the last many years been able to smuggle in a lot of weapons. And despite the fact that the Assam Rifles is holding the Indo-Myanmar border, there are gaps.
Yeah.
There are gaps when these are exploited. But this is also exploited because, Surya, you're aware, in that region along the Indo-Myanmar border, you have something known as the free move regime. That means villages on 16 kilometers of both sides are permitted to move without a visa and to carry headloads to trade. This was an agreement we signed with Myanmar in 1967. Because the communities that live on both sides of the international border are from the same stock or the same tribes. So this kind of agreement has been going on since 1967. So smuggling of weapons has been being done for a very long time, and they have caches of weapons which they could have used for this particular thing.
So, last question, sir. Where do we go from here? This is. Do you expect this is a one-off kind of strike? Is it the prelude to something, perhaps a scaling up of the violence there?
So, see, this insurgency is interconnected. Manipur is connected to Nagaland. It's also connected to Arunachal. It's also connected to Assam, South Assam. So this complete insurgency, because of its connects, could be an issue of maybe a connected strike somewhere else, right? So that's what might happen, Surya. So.
So this strike could happen anywhere, maybe not even in Manipur, somewhere else.
Yes, because the insurgencies are connected. You can't sort out a problem in Nagaland without sorting out Manipur. You can't sort out these two places without sorting out South Assam or South Arunachal. So all these places is because the tribes are similar and they are all involved in the same kind of insurgency. So it might happen in Manipur. Tomorrow this might happen in North Nagaland. It might happen in South Arunachal. You're aware, Surya, in the district of Tirap, a couple of years back, we had a MLA who was killed by the NSCN in a similar brutal attack. So, in insurgency, the insurgent has the advantage. He has the essence of the advantage, and he can take advantage of this anytime. My personal view is, let's sort out the reasons for this insurgency. Let's quickly bring many of these insurgencies to an end. We can't allow this to fester, because more they fester, the more they create problems. And the
Yeah.
more the Indian army takes on, and Assam Rifles decides to take on kinetic operations, the more insurgents we will create.
Yeah.
You see, the idea is that I have just, as you're aware, I was the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group and in touch with the Naga insurgents. And I can tell you very clearly, Surya, that 99% of the Naga youth are not interested in this insurgency.
Okay.
They look at themselves as and identify themselves as Indians, and they see a future in India, their future in India. This is the time to actually get all of them into to get them into a peace accord and sign the peace accord and bring peace here, because we can't allow China to take advantage of it. This is definitely a vulnerable belt, Surya, and definitely will create a larger problem for us in case we're not able to sort it out. See, the end point is that militarily we brought it down. There's governance in this area. There are popular
Yeah.
governments in this area.
Hmm.
This is the time to sort it out.
On that note, General Chauhan, thank you very much for that insight.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
And let's hope we've seen the last of this kind of attacks, and let's hope there is a move to try and end these insurgencies before they get out of hand.
Yes.
Thank you very
Yes.
much, sir.
We
Glad to
must do
speak to
that.
you.
Pleasure, Surya. Pleasure. Thank you.
And for all of you out there who've been following us on YouTube, on Instagram, keep subscribe to us. Keep coming to us with your comments, observations, and questions. We look forward to them. Thank you and good night.